Hello, good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Vanessa.
Good morning, good morning. So we have to wait a couple of minutes just to wait the remaining authors. I think just to be sure, we have Maxim online, right? Ok. Ilaria Cazzola, Beretta De Giudice, Manuela Rebaudengo, are not here and they cannot present, okay. And Sandra Marcela Guerrero is not here, but she is going to present here in the room. And Sebastiano Barbieri is here. Okay, so few minutes and we can start. Thank you. Okay. Okay, we can finally start. Sorry for the this delay. Good morning to everyone, to the participant via Jitsi, and also to the participant here in the room. I am Vanessa Summa from the Department of Architecture at the University of Bologna. I am part and co-chair of this MES session. This is, let's say, the closing cycle of a very fruitful session and rich of contribution. And now I'm going to present Sebastiano Barbieri, who is a PhD student of the Politecnico di Torino, and he has presented a contribution together Caterina Caprioli, Barbara Baronetto, Marta Bottero, and Marco Vallo with a contribution entitled Assessing the Tourist Carrying Capacity of a UNESCO World Heritage Proposed Site. I leave the floor to Sebastiano. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Vanessa, for the presentation. All right, introduction. Sorry. Okay. Hello, everyone.
Microphone.
Dove? Okay. Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Right?
Perfectly.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sebastiano Barbieri from Politecnico of Turin, and today I'm going to present this work called Assessing the Touring Carrying Capacity of a UNESCO World Heritage Proposed Site. And this is the outline of this presentation, where I start with a brief introduction of the main issue and explain what is the aim of the research. Then I will explain what the methodology of the tourist carrying capacity and the various different form of this methodology. I will explain which is the case study for the application, and also I will show the application of this methodology divided into the different steps and the result that are the management guidelines. And some at the end, there are some conclusion and future perspectives. So the inclusion of a site in the World Heritage List is for sure a benefit from different point of view, especially from the protection and promoting point of view. But it could result also in negative effects. And let's say the most visible one is for sure the over-tourism in this kind of territories, in this case of sites. And especially it is visible in cities such as Venice or Barcelona, where the over-tourism is a phenomenon too strongly related to the candidacy, also to other phenomenon, but where also residents start to fight against this phenomenon, and we can see the effects in the news or okay, yeah. And this is why it's an important issue, and these sites needs some methods or assessment that can support decision making in the. Okay, thanks.
No, it's the opposite. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No. Cosa vuoi fare?
We can ask to the Jitsi room if you see the full screen of the presentation.
We see also notes.
Okay.
We can try this.
Double.
Now we see the presentation without notes. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Perfect.
Full screen. Thank you.
Thank you. I was saying, so this is an important issue, and this territory needs methods or tools to assess this kind of issue and to support decision making in this kind of phenomena. And one of these tools is the tourist carrying capacity. So the sustainability concept leads to think about sustainable tourism as a practice that it needs to balance between different dimensions, the environmental one, but also economic and societal one. So and also sustainable tourism should make optimal use of environmental resources, but also respect the social-cultural authenticity of the local communities and ensure long-term profitable economic operation, but also needs the participation of all the stakeholders involved in the process. So the aim of the research is to test this methodology in a real case scenario for a proposed site for the enrollment in the World Heritage List. And to do this, we will check the current situation of this site and the future situation of tourism. We identify useful indicators in structuring the analysis of the tourism carrying capacity, but also discuss about best practice and management guidelines. So the World Tourism Organization define the tourism carrying capacity as the maximum, as a sort of form of engineer definition, like a maximum number of people that visiting simultaneously a site without compromising its environmental, physical, or economic characteristic, and also without reducing the tourist satisfaction. But this is not the only definition of the tourist carrying capacity. There are a lot, and despite all this definition, none is universally accepted. And there is a summary of the main definition in different years. And for this application, we will use for only the theoretical part, the Cifuentes of 1992, but also the links methodology, that is a methodology developed in 2017 by Cimnaghi et al. And it defines tourist carrying capacity as a tool that can guide and the recognition of current situation of the site, but also its conservation status. But the important thing is the aim, because the aim is arrive to define some management guidelines. So to study in a holistic way this kind of situation, this methodology is considered different dimension: the theoretical one, the physical, societal, psychological, infrastructural, and the management, general one. The methodology is also divided into three steps. The first one is the filling of a form, a preliminary carrying capacity form that collects all the main information about the site, but also about the context. The second phase is a table of indicators where, all the useful indicators to assess the site are collected, but also are assessed and we will see how. And the last step is the result sheet, where the management guidelines are defined. The case study that we used for this application is the Sacra di San Michele. Is a cultural asset located in the Susa Valley, close to Turin, and is in the tentative list of UNESCO since 2016. And it's a very landmark of the Piedmont region. And this important. It is an important place of worship, but also like a tourism destination already. And also the valley, the Susa Valley, is already a tourism development area, because not only for this cultural asset, but also because of sports and leisure, such as for example, for the Laghi di Avigliana, or also for the ski resorts on the mountains. So the first step is the filling of the carrying capacity preliminary form, where all the main information are collected about the site, for example, the name, the typology of the site, the location, and so on, but also about the context, such as the environmental risks, the seismic risk, hydrogeological risk, and so on, and also the protection framework, the protection measures that are defined by law, other information like this. The second step is the defining of the table of indicators. So to do this, the selection must be carried out starting from previous case studies that also Links Foundation carried out. For example, we studied 2 case studies, the Cinque Terre one and the fortified city of Bergamo. And the analysis of this kind of case study can, is useful to assess the transferability of certain indicators to the Sacra di San Michele one. And for example, we use the theoretical tourist capacity index, but only for in the previous case study, it's only calculated for the fortified city of Bergamo, because it's a very complicated index and takes into consideration the area of the site. And we know Cinque Terre is a huge area, and it's very complex to find a very accessible area, because there are it's too huge to manage this kind of calculation. So we tried for the Sacra di San Michele, taking as reference the fortified city of Bergamo. Also, for the assignment, we used a color rating scale from red, poor, to green, excellent, and to assess different kind of indicators, from qualitative, where the target value is the best performance is assigned as excellent, and dichotomous indicators that are classified in excellent or poor, and qualitative indicators with the help of experts from Links Foundation with comparison with other case studies. This is the table of indicators. It's divided into the different categories of the tourist carrying capacity. For example, the theoretical one, we assess this indicator as good, because we compare the number of people with the number of real visitors that the Sacra San Michele has during the year. Also, for the physical component, we can see the opening hours. That is a good indicator, because it's most of the days of the year are open, the Sacra di San Michele. And for example, psychological, there is the presence of services that is sufficient, so it's not too good. There are some services, but they can be improved. But the most critical part is about the social and infrastructural part, where especially the seasonality and the resident tourist ratio for the social one is not too good, is rated not sufficient, because most of the residents are very low, and the tourists are high, the number of tourists is high, and also the seasonality, because there are some months of the year that are very crowded, and other months that are empty, let's say. And the last one, that is the main issue of this site, is the accessibility. So the infrastructural one, with the lack of parking lots, or also the efficiency of the public transport, especially between the station of Avigliana and the site, is not very good, and also it's very scarce, as a service. So for this kind of issue that we identified with this table of indicators, different management guidelines can be different discussion about these guidelines can be done, like, for example, for the accessibility, an improvement of the accessibility services also in general, but also for disabled people can be a very good solution for this site, especially because if we consider that is on the top of a mountain, is very difficult to reach it with normal without a private car. So also the better management of the paths in crowded moments, because to reach the Sacra there are also different pedestrian paths that can be used from the city above the mountain, for example, Chiusa San Michele and Sant'Ambrogio. Also, the increase of the number of parking lots in the proximity of the Sacra, if not specifically in the Sacra di San Michele, but in some strategic point that can be used together with the public transportation. Also, for the seasonality of tourists, to compensate the difference in number of tourism in different months, can be the suggestion is to diversify the offer between the different months. For example, proposing cultural events or the promotion of the site in a different way, exceptional openings, and so on. Safety and preservation, we didn't talk about it, but it's quite good, but constant maintenance is necessary. And for a general overview, a balance between different issues, such as heritage conservation, accessibility, or the optimization of the tourist services is very important to manage all these influx of tourists. So, in conclusion, the application of this approach, this methodology to a real case study demonstrates that it's a dynamic approach. It's not we can use different indicators. We can choose what is the target value, or we can manage different things. And also, we can propose different things about the management guidelines. About the theoretical part of the TCC, we saw that it's difficult to calculate it in complex situations such as the Cinque Terre case study. So we tried to, but it depends on which values we take into consideration about the surface, the accessible surface, about the number of tourists and the number of turning that the site can manage during the day. Also, it's a valuable source for decision support, because it provides some guidelines for decision makers, and it is possible to integrate this methodology with other different assessment methods that to study holistically this kind of sites that are very complex. The future perspective of this research is to assign the missing values, because if you saw in the table, there are missing values because the lack of information about them. It's difficult because sometimes the management entities don't know about this kind of information, or they need more survey about it. So sometimes it's difficult to have all the information. So we will try to insert also the missing values, but also we saw that accessibility is one of the main issues. So to study in deep the problem of accessibility. Another thing that we will try to do is to calculate a synthetic index to see the overall performance of all the indicators, and also to weight different criteria using multi-criteria assessment. So this is all. Thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Sebastiano. I would like to know if there are some questions or curiosity from the public, presence and also per remote modality. Okay, please.
Okay. So thank you, Sebastiano, for the presentation. It's really, really interesting also for the specific characteristic of the topic. So I would like to ask you a curiosity according to the indicators, because it is really context-based, this topic, as well as the case study. So I would like to ask you if, in your opinion, it's possible to create a kind of repository of indicators in order to give to administration or organization for the management of cultural site a sort of database of indicators in order to check and identify these according to the specific case study.
Yes, for sure. Thank you for the question. For sure, it can be very useful for, especially for municipalities that need, or municipality or management bodies that deal with this kind of situation. For sure, there will be there should be a collection of indicators that are general, that can be used for different kind of sites, but also a part of the database that can be change according to the different specificity of the context. But it will be a very useful tool, and especially for decision makers to also we did the same thing searching about the previous case studies. So the same thing is to have a collection of already used indicators is useful also for researchers that are dealing with this kind of situation. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Other questions? I have a question for you, just a curiosity.
Yes.
Not a question. Congratulations for this work. I also find it is very promising, interesting. I would like to see again the slide 12 and 13, because we know that by Cifuentes and then Cinnaghi, that the tourism carrying capacity has several dimensions. So we can unpackage the tourism carrying capacity in different dimensions, such as the psychological one. So I'm interested to better understand if you are taking into account all the dimensions, also according to the data availability, because I have understood that there are some missing indicators, and how much is the effort to collect all this data?
In terms of effort, for sure, the surveys are the most difficult one to have, because you have to organize and this kind of data collection. Sometimes are costly, are expensive, because you have basically you have to stay there or pay someone to do this kind of surveys. But yeah, the other part of the can you repeat the question?
For example, the psychological dimension.
Yes.
So how you want to tackle this evaluation?
No. Also, it's also difficult to understand the perception of tourists, but also residents. So usually we use different indicators, such as the ratio, the tourist resident tourist ratio, because sometimes it's useful to understand how much a place is crowded of tourists, and how much the authenticity of a place can be ruined or damaged by tourists. So this is some methods to find this difficult information to collect, because sometimes also tourists are not fully available to share with you if they are satisfied of the experience or not, or the residents how much. No, but the residents probably are more encouraged to yes.
Are better motivated
But tourists, maybe maybe it's the contrary. It's like okay, it's good. They can say it's a good experience, but maybe they have some concern that they don't want to share with you.
Okay, perhaps you could consider as a matching comparison. So you could calculate the tourism carrying capacity index and then calculate a counter indicator from the resident point of view.
Okay.
And perhaps with an interviews, a questionnaire, you can also indicate where there were, I don't know, damages, accidents.
Yes.
For example, the pro-local associations taking into account all these events throughout the year could be interesting to support the calculation.
If I'm not wrong, in one of the two case study, or the Bergamo or Cinque Terre one, there was the number of accident or damaged properties that are in the site. We didn't use it because basically. Or we use it? No. At the end, no, because we at the beginning there was another list of indicators, and then we changed it. Yes, accident, vandalism, acts, theft, but the number is undefined.
Yeah,
because
so videos.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So with the technology.
Yes, we assess only the part of the surveillance part. So to prevent this kind of situation. But yes, it's difficult because sometimes the municipality doesn't take into account or collect all the vandalism acts and other stuff like this. So yeah, but it's a very useful indicator that if you have the data can solve some questions or issues that are in the site.
Okay, thank you so much,
Thank you.
Sebastiano. Okay, now I leave. Now I leave the floor to my colleague Caterina Caprioli, who will present the next speaker.
Yes, thank you, Vanessa. Yes, the second contribution from Maxime Fevolivs and Francesco Romagnoli is entitled Development of a District Heating Resilient Index, a multi-criteria assessment approach based on Latvia case studies. I leave the floor to Maxime.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Very well. Just let me find the switching button for the slides. Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you for being here. I would like now to present a case study that I made together with Professor Francesco Romagnoli at Riga Technical University with our master student Renata Lakste. And the case study is about developing a district heating resilience index to assess the district heating resilience for Latvia. And the study was also done within NATO Science for Peace and Security funded project a priori. And the background for such study, why it was necessary, is because in Latvia, as you know, we have such climate dependency that in winter we rely on the district heating, and in total there are 633 district heating production plants in Latvia, and also combined heat and power plants, total of 175, which is a lot of heat production in different cities, in different municipalities going on every winter. And district heating can be considered as a critical infrastructure, which is essential for let's say providing and sustaining the daily functions within the cities in Latvia during the winter. And it's interesting to see that now with climate change, when winters become well, the average temperature during the winter is increasing, that actually the district heatings as companies suffer because they do not have such high income as in winters which are colder, and it's hard for them to sustain the capacities that are needed for the colder days due to the lower incomes during the rest of the winter. So we tried for this reason to create an evaluation tool within this study that would help us to understand which of the current district heatings perform better in terms of which are more resilient, and that would help us to give suggestions for other district heating companies to prepare better and and to become more resilient to the new conditions that they're functioning in. And based on preliminary review, we already found that resilience is a widely discussed topic in scientific articles. There are more than 50,000 publications on this topic, and many of them are in the field of environmental science. Most of them are in the field of environmental science. There are publications that are dedicated to even to this specific topic, energy system resilience. However, only few of them address district heating, and we found that there is no common framework or assessment tool or standard how to evaluate district heating resilience. And considering that it is such a broad term, we thought that this is the correct way how to proceed to define assessment method for the district heating resilience. So we looked also on the meaning of district heating, and in order to understand what district heating resilience could include. And if we look here at this diagram on the history of the word of the term resilience, that it is coming through many different science fields and has different aspects embedded into this term, including the ecological aspect that is then uptaken by sustainability science, and disaster risk reduction that is further linked with climate change adaptation. And overall, there is very broad understanding of what resilience is. There is no single definition. So in order to capture the many different aspects that resilience could address for district heating, we selected a methodology that is multi-criteria analysis. And for that, of course, we first needed to define the dimensions, the factors, the indicators that we would like to assess with this approach, and the case studies where we would test the approach. With the student, we gathered data from public information and also by interviewing and surveying the companies that we selected as case studies and professionals working in the field. And at the end, we made the assessment of these district heatings and also sensitivity of two different weightings that are possible based on the results. And I will tell you why we needed to perform this sensitivity specifically for the weights on the final single score. But before that, I will just slightly introduce you the dimensions and the indicators which we selected. So there we defined economic dimension, technical dimension, climate and environmental dimension, and social dimension, with different numbers of indicators based on the surveys and interviews with professionals. So we identified the indicators that, according to the professionals working in the field, really influence the district heating's ability to continue to function and continue to deliver the heat towards the consumers, depending on the changing conditions. And we used the TOPSIS approach for calculating the single score out of the different indicators. So here are already normalized values for different indicators given for economic dimension. And I would like just to underline that you can see that the company profit and loss indicator actually is the indicator that is going in, could be going in the negative direction, for example, for one of the district heating companies. And this had a huge influence on the results and on how we could further use, on the results and how we could further use the weighting of the different dimensions, because the rest of the dimensions, if you look, they all have positive indicators. And for example, technological dimension, it has positive indicators and more indicators than economic dimension. Also, there is climate and environmental dimension with all the positive indicators, and social dimension, also all positive indicators, varying across these case studies. For the single score results with the equal weighting, we got a case where we have one company here in the middle. I don't know if can you see my also my mouse?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I will just let me do like this laser pointer. Yeah. So you see, this company in the middle, in our case, had a huge financial income, had huge profit, and for the economical dimension, it outperformed the rest of the companies here. And at the end, only this dimension had the most influence for this company to become the first in the evaluation, while the other company on the right in this graph, you see it had negative profit, so it had loss during the evaluation period, and this made this company to become the third. Well, this company that got the second place was performing better in technological dimension, and climate and environmental dimension was close to the Jormal Siltom's company, this technological dimension didn't give much of the impact in comparison to the economical dimension, because within the economical dimension, the variability of the values within the indicators between ideal and anti-ideal is much higher than for the rest of the dimensions. And for that reason, we redefined the weighting for this assessment approach we developed. And we found that ranked ordered centroid technique, where we rank the dimensions by the by their impact on the final score, we redefine which dimension is has the highest weight by evaluating which would be the most important for resilience, and we selected the technological dimension to be with as the dimension with the most meaningful weight. Then the second one was environmental and climate, then economic, and then social. In the fourth place. And after redefining the weights for these dimensions, we found that there is this single score evaluation would give a more consistent picture of the final results, with still changing the order of the evaluation for the case studies. And now we see that Salzspiel Siltums was evaluated as most resilient company. Jurmalis Siltums is the second one, going from the first to the second place, and the last one still remaining, Jakavas Nami. And this allowed us to conclude that TOPSIS method can provide a structured and transparent way to evaluate district heating resilience. In total, we had 30 indicators across 4 dimensions, and we found that some of the dimensions will have higher impact on the final results, depending on the variability of the scores between ideal and anti-ideal within that dimension for the indicators. And that's when the subjective weighting should be applied in order to improve the scale of evaluation for resilience assessment. And we concluded the technological dimension should be prioritized over the other dimensions, followed by climate and environmental, and then social and economic dimensions. Further studies could include sensitivity of weights for separate indicators, maybe testing even alternative normalization approaches, which could improve also the evaluation for these indicators that have higher variability in the results from ideal to anti-ideal, and also maybe other multi-criteria method combinations could be tested. So that's all for this study from my side. Thank you for your attention. And in case you have questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. thank you very much for the presentation. I ask if there are some questions online or in presence in the room.
There is a question here in the room B, please.
Hi, thank you, Maxime, for your presentation. It's really, really interesting. And I would ask according to the number of indicators, because as you said in the conclusion, the different dimensions have different number of indicators. So some dimension can weight more than others. So I would like to know if for the future perspective of the research, you think about to consider the equal number for all the dimension in order to set also the weights in different way, and or if you think that some dimension should have, a most relevant importance according to the evaluation demand. Thank you.
So thank you for the question. It's a good question for clarifying again what we actually done here and what we found. So to clarify that, we had different number of indicators in each dimension, but that's why we used equal weighting for the dimensions at the start. Yes, that's why we thought that if we have different number of indicators, we should apply equal weighting for the dimensions. However, the results were not suitable as we expected, because even if we have equal weights for the dimensions, the variability between ideal and anti-ideal within each dimension would have influence would have influence on the consistency, because economical indicators have much higher variability. As I showed you in the results, they even can have negative values, and at the same time other case for the same indicator can have a positive value, which is very far from this negative. And this one indicator, even when dimensions are equally weighted, can have bigger impact on the results, which actually is not representing, let's say, a real suitable evaluation for the district heating resilience. And for that reason, we applied this different set of weights, which according to our expertise was more suitable in order to deal with this variability. Yeah. And answering to the question, if there should be same number of the indicators in each dimension, then I have to say no, because the set of indicators was developed not just to limit the number of indicators for each dimension, but it was specifically made based on the interviews with experts to represent which indicators really show and influence the performance of district heating. And by taking out one of the indicators, we actually would take out certain perspective out of district heating's performance. So the answer is no, we should not limit to the same number of indicators in each dimension. We just have to be more consistent with the weighting and the sensitivity analysis, which was also a recommendation for further research. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions from the room? Otherwise, I have a curiosity, if I can. Did you provide guideline, or do you think to give a guideline to companies in order to improve their performances?
Yeah, actually, you see, what we're planning to do here is within this project, we will make a tool, like an Excel-based tool for the companies, so that they can evaluate how their performance, what is their performance in relation to the other companies. Yeah, so the idea is to develop a tool for district heating companies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can move to the other contribution. Unfortunately, the third contribution cannot present today, so I ask Maxime if he wants to present also the next contribution, or otherwise we can move to the last contribution and then again to Maxime, as you wish.
It's fine for me to present.
Okay.
I'm already sharing my screen.
Okay.
And I actually
So
have
I
the
briefly
same
present.
presentation.
Okay. So I briefly present your contribution entitled Rethinking Peatland Future for Latvia, a life cycle thinking approach integrated with multi-criterial analysis, again provided by Maxims, and with the contribution of Francesco Romagnoli and the student Das Araya.
Oh, thank you for the nice introduction. Yes, so this is another case study from a different project that we made. The project is a national project on sustainable peatland strategies for restoration of peat extraction sites. So why this project is important? Because as it's given in the name, that there are extraction sites that have been used for peat extraction and left abandoned after the extraction, and now they need to be reconverted or used sustainably according to the nature restoration law of European Union. And this is important because peatlands are crucial part of natural habitat for many species. There's huge biodiversity maintained. Peatlands also play an important role in the local climate regulation. And the aim of this study was to make an assessment of different peatland management strategies, evaluate their sustainability for case of Latvia, in order to provide some inputs for further project development, in which we'll be aiming also to use these results within a more advanced tool, which is linked with GIS type of data and peatland restoration strategy management. So why we're talking about this sustainable management? So in ideal world, as environmental scientists see it, there would be no resource extraction that creates impacts. There would be only the existing resources used that are already within the economy, all they would be recycled. And the idea is to minimize the quantity of natural resources, minimize the quantity of waste, and release less emissions and less energy, and consume less energy. That is actually, this idea is embedded in the environmental life cycle assessment approach, which is already standardized according to ISO 1440 standard. And of course, in addition, for the management, in order to really look on the sustainability from all the sustainability pillars, not just environmental, but also economic and social, we define that with the environmental life cycle assessment, we will use economic life cycle costing and also social life cycle assessment, together creating the life cycle sustainability assessment through the, again, application of multi-criteria approach, which is using separate indicators from each of the, let's say now we can call them dimensions, environmental dimension, economic dimension, and social, based on the LCA evaluations. Yeah, so here is just a small introduction into what is an environmental LCA, but basically it's a scientifically proven methodology, and as I said, it's already standardized, used in practice for like product environmental footprints, organization environmental footprints, and allows in general to evaluate different kinds of environmental impacts coming from certain processes and even process life cycle, starting from product raw material extraction to product use to waste processing. Yeah, so here is just standard replication and visualization of how results can be viewed across different impact categories in environmental LCA for different scenarios. Then the life cycle costing can be understood differently. There's conventional life cycle costing used in economical justification of the product. There can be also extended life cycle costing, which includes also the costs of environmental impacts in addition to the conventional costs. And there can be also even broader life cycle costing evaluation methodology that is including also the costs for society for implementing the project over longer periods of time. And the social LCA, the third dimension in the study, well, the methodology for the social LCA is usually categorizing the impact on stakeholders in 6 categories: workers, local community, society, consumer, and value chain actors. And there can be different approaches with impact pathway or performance reference point. Well, in the impact pathway, there are standardized values given in the databases for certain impacts on society in certain supply chains, while performance reference point is specific local criteria coming from the local surveys made within a specific case study. Yeah, here are just more indicators that can be defined across different these stakeholder categories. And now to summarize the process of the methodology, how we did it. So we did first the definition of the scenarios for our environmental life cycle assessment, identifying and quantifying the inputs and the outputs of each stage for restoration process, such as resources, energy, materials, equipment needed during the restoration. And based on this information from the database and with help of software such as SimaPro, we got the direct and indirect emissions, meaning the direct emissions from restoration and indirect from the supply chain of resources and the use stage of during the restoration activities. And these results were used as the indicators for environmental dimension. So the results from environmental LCA were used. Then also for these inputs and outputs, we quantified the costs, the monetary costs, and we monitorized the externalities related to the ecosystem services to broaden the life cycle costing perspective, not just from going more from the conventional, also to a broader impact evaluation in monetary terms. And we defined social impact categories for social LCA, labor conditions, health and safety, community and well-being, and cultural heritage for the inputs. And the results we put again in TOPSIS, because we believe that this is a robust methodology to give meaningful outputs out of different dimension indicators, which also can be adjusted through the weights if necessary, as already mentioned in my previous study. So here is mentioned which indicators we used for the environmental dimension: damage to human health, damage to ecosystems, and damage to resource availability from RECIPE 2016 environmental impact assessment method. The life cycle costing indicators: net of present value, internal rate of return, profitability index, and monetary value of ecosystem services. And we defined the social LCA indicators: direct employment, employment generated over the full supply chain over the life cycle of the project, workplace injuries, and dependence on external suppliers. For these 10 restoration strategies. So these restoration strategies included renaturalization, creation of water bodies, and afforestation, which are very, let's say, low impact already. From the name you can tell that these are not very process dense, process intensive strategies. Then more process intense strategies were related to agricultural practices. And we also defined 2 scenarios that include technological solutions like wind farms and also solar farms, because actually there are companies that are evaluating such solutions. And I will skip already to the results. We were surprised to see that I'm not giving here the full picture, but this is the final results that we got. And we were surprised to see that actually the wind turbines and solar panels outperform the rest of the scenarios, even the ones that are not so resource intense, like blueberry cultivation, renaturalization, and afforestation, and cranberries. Because for wind turbines and solar panels, there is a very big avoided impact for fossil fuel generation. So when we install, let's say, 1 megawatt of wind turbines, we decrease 1 megawatt hour of conventional electricity mix in the grid, which is approximately half coming from fossil fuels in Latvia. And that was considered in the LCA model. And that made wind turbines and solar panels to to score the highest in the results. Also, there was considered the uptake of carbon in the blueberry cultivation and afforestation, which also had a positive influence on the final results. And for these scenarios, and we got the agriculture, grassland, and water bodies as the lowest scoring scenarios. So just to conclude what it all meant for the project that we're working on, yes, we know that the peatlands are important habitats, and their degradation for agriculture, forestry, and peat extraction purposes create large impacts. But there is currently a lack of precise documentation on peatland recultivation options that can be used also for policy planning at local level. And that's why we applied this full life cycle sustainability approach with Topsys to look more comprehensively on the evaluation of peatland after use strategies. So after the peat extraction has finished, and we found that renewable energy strategies offer strong sustainability outcomes. Of course, they are also combinable with ecological restoration options like renaturalization or blueberries that scored also high in the results. So those strategies can be combined, and that will be considered further in the project, in the tool development for the project that we're working on. Again, we find there is aspect of indicator variability and weighting that can influence the rankings. So we'll again further investigate more the sensitivity analysis of indicators when developing the final tool. We found that the most limitations are related to the social data for the social LCA and the ecosystem service evaluation for monetization of external costs of the project. And that will be also further studied in the project. And yeah, as I mentioned, future research within the project will focus on the sensitivity analysis and refining the social indicators and improving the ecosystem service evaluation for the final tool. So that's all for this presentation. And thank you again for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maxime. Again, I ask if there are questions in the room or online.
No question here.
Okay. Otherwise, I have a curiosity. Do you think that the set of indicators identified could be applied in other contexts outside, Latvia and so on?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a very good question for this study and also for the previous one. I would like to say that both projects that we're working on, they are this one is national project, but of course the tool would be applicable for any other European country, because the indicators that we are evaluating are are tailored to not just to national context, but also to at least European. And for the second, but for the previous project, I would just like to add that that project is international, and it is planned that there will be more case studies also in Slovakia and Moldova for the district heating index testing. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Perhaps there is another question here in the room. Please come.
Thank you for your presentation. It's just a curiosity. I would like to know if, you applied this methodology to a specific natural resource like peatlands. I would like to ask you if this methodology can be applied also to other environmental resources, and if this needs to be adjusted in some way, or it is good like this. And yeah, this one. Thanks.
Thank you.
So answering to your last point, if there needs to be adjustment, then for sure, I think there's a lot of work to be done. So because this is just the first result of these peatland management evaluation, and we'll be working more on them and tailoring them more in detail for commercial application. Let's say not commercial, but application in practice by real companies and policy planners. So there will be for sure more in-depth research to be done, and most probably the results could change eventually. But here everything is normalized per hectare in these results. So these are already suitable for, let's say, first applications. And relating to other types of land use, not just peatlands, this approach, I think, will become more important in the future. The approach that considers the whole life cycle, so the life cycle sustainability assessment for land use is, I think, it's one of the growing topics in the life cycle thinking field, that now we'll be not just talking about product environmental assessment or organization environmental assessment, but we'll be looking at like territorial LCA, which territories, which type of land use are more sustainable, give higher benefit in the environmental dimension, economic, and social. So I think that there's this approach will bloom in I don't know in what time, but it will for sure be growing. Yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay. Thank you so much also from the public here. And now, last but not least, I'm going to present Sandra Marcelo Guerrero Calvaci, I think, okay, with Giovanni Hernandez and Maria Clara Gomez Alvarez. They are going to present a contribution entitled Measuring Team Productivity in Agile Development, a Scrum-based process. I leave the floor to Marcelo.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
You must share.
It's possible.
Please go to the GC room again. The left, okay, and you must start the screen sharing. Okay, this one. Oh.
It's possible to present.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you see in the GC room the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. I apologize with possible mistake in my pronunciation because my native language is Spanish. I am from Colombia. Okay. Greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. In this moment, I will our research call it measuring team productivity in agile software development, a Scrum-based process. This research is conducted by me, Sandra Marcela Guerrero, from Institución Universitaria Pascual Bravo in Medellín, Colombia, and my co-research, Giovanni Hernandez from Universidad Mariana in Pasto City in Colombia, and María Clara Gómez from Universidad Nacional de Colombia, sede Medellín. Okay, this is the agenda for today. First of all, I will talk about the problem and the context. Second, I will cover the motivation. Continue, I will explain the methodology. Continue with the results, and finally the conclusion and the future research. Okay, the problem and the context, let's start. Productivity is an economic measure created at the end century. But in software engineering, people start to study in 1970. Productivity is associated to the ratio between the outputs, that's characteristic, function, set of code of line, and the inputs, time and effort. But in agile software development, this perception changes, and it's the problem. The problem is specified to the team productivity evaluation in agile context. In this slide, you can see some causes for the problem and some effects for this situation. For example, the causes are there are limited information about measuring productivity in agile context. The perception of productivity changes according to the role. Is different the perception from the product owner in agile context and the Scrum Master. Continue with the teams generate the data without a unified view of productivity. The values and principles exposed in the Agile Manifesto are abstract for measuring productivity. And finally, the information generated by is expensive when translated into decision. Okay, for this reason, we have this research. It's important to mention that we have done a research for during 4 years. In the first part of the study, I did a systematic mapping study when I identify the perception of productivity in the literature. For example, about the team productivity in agile software development is an abstract concept. Also, the team productivity is relevant for the teams and for software companies. It is an indicator of improvement. And the most common perception about team productivity in agile context is the productivity is composed by many factors. In this study, I identified 62 factors for measuring productivity. The results of the first part of the study you can see in this QR code, and I published a paper for this first part. In the second part, I did a survey with professionals of software company. The professional say that productivity is associated as an indicator of improvement and help to the team the work better, the better way, and meets the goals. It's important to mention that for professional, only 22 factors are relevant for measuring productivity. The results of the second part of the study you can see in this QR code. About the 22 factors, it's important to mention are grouped in 4 categories. The categories are meaning. Meaning is associated to how people see the productivity. The category number 2 is the impact. The impact is a category relation with the how factor influence the team positive, negative, or their neutral way. The next is the flexibility is associated to factor than the influence of the team to adapt to the change. And finally, the socio-human category is associated to quality and the human qualities, and it's important to this category helps to the team to the work the better way. Okay, the motivation for this research is propose a structured process for measuring productivity aligning with the Scrum framework. The methodology. The measure process is composed by two phases. The phase number one is design. In design, you can identify 3 activities, and for validation, these other 4 activities. About the results. The results in the stage number 1 associated to design. In this slide, you can see 22 factors for measuring productivity grouped by in the 4 categories. It's important to mention for the socio-human factor, we considered the other study for the research Machuca and Gasca that because they studied these specified factors, and we identify the other categories, and we identify the definition of the metrics for the categories meaning, flexibility, and impact. It is an example for this first activity. In this slide, you can see the factor of velocity, for example, and the concept identified in the literature, the metrics for measuring this factor, and the representation about the math for this factor. It's important to mention for the other factors, the meaning, impact, and flexibility category, the metrics are identified in this QR, or the complete paper is available in these slides. Continue with the activity number 2 in the process design. It's important to mention that the process is composed by different elements. The elements are the phase. The phase is composed by activities. The activities has a Scrum event and a Scrum role. It's important to mention that in Scrum, the Scrum event are the sprint planning, daily meeting, sprint review, and sprint retrospective. And the Scrum role is the product owner, Scrum Master, and developers. Consider with this element, we build the design process. It's important to mention that the model is in a business process model, and for the representation, we use the business process management notation. In this slide, you can see the representation about the process design. Is important to mention is composed by 3 phases: planning, execution, and evaluation. In this slide, you can see the representation of planning phase. In this planning phase, you can see the Scrum Master start to the process when introduce the factor for measuring productivity. Continue, the product owner and Scrum Master with developer select of the list the productivity factor. Continue, Scrum Master identify the metrics for this specified factor and establish the for a measurement way for this factor. Scrum Master determine the type of rating scale, identify the resource and tools, and finally establish the time bots for measuring this factor. This is the number 1 phase. It is the representation for execution phase. In the execution phase, Scrum Master started with the coordinate the data recording for measurement. Continue with the Scrum Master, product owner, and developers. Select the metric for this factor, record the data, and finally, the Scrum Master calculate the value of the metric for the according to the collected data. And finally, the evaluation phase starts with the Scrum Master elaborate a graphical representation of behavior of the results. Continue with the Scrum Master interpret the results of the graphical representation. Continue with the Scrum team, which is composed with the Scrum Master, the product owner, and developer, establish the regulation of the improvement action. Continue with the Scrum Master, synthesize regulatory and improvement action, and finally, Scrum Master specify and the action plan. It's important to mention for each file we build, propose, and some artifacts. For example, it is the artifact for the specify the planning. In this slide, you can see the category, the factor, the metric, the measurement, the the time scale, measurement scale, the resource, and the time box. It is an example for velocity. Continue with this factor. It is the artifact for the specify the execution about, for example, for 5 sprint. This is the data for velocity in a team, for example, and the results consider these measurement scales. And finally, this is the artifact to specify the evaluation. In this slide, you can see the graphical representation about the past data. And finally, the conclusion about the behavior of this data for the team. Okay, the number 2 stage is the validation. It's important to mention we apply a case study with professionals of software companies. We applied the case study in April and May 2024. In this case study, participate 77 software industry practitioners in 19 teams, and they were building a product software of medium complexity into a sprint. It is the results about the socio-demographic information. The most common participants are male, and the other 20% is family. And you can see the age range and the experience in software projects. Continue with the level of acceptance. It's important to mention that the 50% say that it's a good idea, the proposal. And it's important because the proposal formats to measure productivity and gives the planning, execution, and evaluation phases. About the difficulties, around 12% of professionals recording issues, recording data on measurement artifacts. Around 8% of professionals have difficulty understand factor, for example, work capacity. And finally, around 4% of professionals face difficulty defining the measurement scales. About the aspect that could be improved, it's important to mention that 74% say that it's not necessary change for the proposal. It's a good idea. Other person suggest create a computer tour. It's very, very necessary. And finally, other person provide you an instruction manual for facilitate and understand the other metrics or factor in specify. And the conclusion and the field of research, it's important to mention that the process measure team productivity in Scrum is composed by 3 phases: planning, execution, and evaluation. And it includes 22 factors organized in 4 categories, meaning impact, flexibility, and socio-humans. And practitioners show with high acceptance of the process is a positive aspect for my research. And the main challenge then was capturing the required data, and the future research is subject a guide and a digital tool for support the implementation. Thank you so much, and no more. Thank you.
you so much. It's very, very interesting. There are some questions from the public. Please.
Actually, I have two questions. One is about the framework that if you can come back to the slide with the framework, with the criteria. It was a page with the description of the indicator.
Okay. Wait.
Perhaps the bars, the colored bars.
No. They were kind of this one. Yeah. I was wondering if you had any issue since there is no balance between the different indicators. So there are some dimensions that have a lower number, and there are the social human that have a higher number of indicators. When you were combining the different parts, if you have any issue for balancing and finding a good trade-off, since, as I told you, there is a difference in the number of indicators. So this one is the first one. And then the second question is about so since you've been interviewing with several kind of sample of people, so different ages, also female, men. If you notice also, according to the answer, differences, according, for example, people that have a specific age usually have answered on that case on a specific question. So if you found some correlation with the age or with the gender, according to the answer that they gave, if there were differences in that case.
Okay, I try to. Thanks for two questions. I try to understand the question. Okay, it's important to mention that for the first systematic mapping study, I identified 62 factors. For organize this factor, it's considered one study that proposed about the performance of the team. But it's important to mention that the other researchers, for example, Machuca and Gasca, they are working for many years the socio-human qualities and consider this in the first time the category is called high performance. But when review the studies for Machuca and Gasca, we identify that the factor is associated to the socio-human. And it's important to organize the factor. We identify it's the most common because it's associated with the social skills in the socio-humans, and the other is more common with the other abilities. For example, in the meaning, it's a perception about the individual or general perception about productivity, and the flexibility is factoring specified with the team adapt to the change for situation. And for example, the impact is more associated with the influence and the productivity. And the socio-human is more. It's important to the team consider the socio-humans factor and the social skills. It's my.
But when you are then combining the different criteria, since in the socio-human you have a higher number, so there are many compared to the others.
The numbers about the factor, we identify in the first systematic mapping study the factor in different papers and contrast the common characteristics and organize with this appropriated name for this. About the second question, it's important to mention we applied to survey. In the first survey, it was when applied the considered with the perception of professional, but no separate information for the gender. No, it's important is the general way, and in the case study, it's the same process. It's very, very important to consider that the professional are the most common is male, because in the software industry it's the common situation. But it's important to mention that the perception has to organize the factor, and in the validation evaluate the appropriate of the proposal and the apply the future changes.
Did you find any difference from the answer from people coming from, I don't know, of 24 years old or people of 55 years old? Did you find any difference in the answer?
No. It's common in the same context. It's important for the separate the socio-demographic information, but not combined with the other answer for the other process, for example.
Okay. There are other questions also from the GC room.
I have a curiosity. Do you think it is possible to give weights or different importances to the metrics that you consider? So some dimension, bigger weights, bigger values compared to the others, or for the specific metrics?
Okay, when we did other systematic mapping study for identify the metrics. It's important to mention that in specify the meaning factor is easier to identify the metrics, but the other factor, for example, in the flexibility in identifying is more difficult for this factor. And the socio-human we didn't to explore because Machuca and Gasca they apply this study for many years and consider these metrics for this research. It's about the metrics.
Okay, I have one last curiosity before leaving the room. Do you think that this framework can have, let's say, a potential for other economic sectors, for example, building construction, in the context of the project management, when you have to optimize the whole process? Okay, we are talking about the construction or design solutions, but perhaps the optimization of the human psychological dimensions, the well-being that you want to integrate can in some manner be integrated and replicated also in other different contexts.
Yes, I think that is very important to share in this event the research, because it's very important. It's necessary to measuring productivity in software companies. For example, a question that the teams in the software company is what tool we use for measuring productivity, and they answered I use Jira software, but Jira software is a tool for management the process, but not in specified to measuring productivity. Okay. And it's important that to this process with a tool computer, it's possible to show to the software engineers they use and learn to productivity and understand these metrics for improve the job.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, the last part of this macro session is closed. Enjoy the conference, and thank you so much for joining this morning. Thank you.
Bye bye, thank you also from my side.
Thank you. Ciao Kate, dove sei? Non ti vedo.
Ciao.
Ciao, un bacio.
Ciao,
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye, thank you very much.